Hey everyone, it's Eric Mintel. Welcome to Eric Mintel Investigates, the interviews. Today, my guest is my good friend Steve Ward. He's from Point Pleasant, West Virginia. I just saw Steve when I was just speaking down at the Mothman Festival this year. And I'll tell you folks, if you ever get a chance to go down to the Mothman Festival, go check it out. There were over 20,000 people there. I sold out of all my books. All the vendors sold out of everything. It was amazing, amazing festival that was created by Jeff Wamsley. But today I wanted to talk with Steve about his paranormal adventures, that and a lot more today on Eric Mintel Investigates, the interviews. As promised, ladies and gentlemen, international icon, paranormal expert, investigator, Steve Ward. Huh? Steve, how you doing, buddy?
Very good. I would think that if I was an icon, I would have makeup people, my own trailer. I don't have any of that.
You know, you are loved by many, believe it or not, behind the scenes. You are really doing a lot of the research over the years, and you're one of those guys, man, that's like us. You're out in the field, and literally that's how we met, out in the field.
In a field, that's right.
Right, Bray Road in Elkhorn, Wisconsin, which was amazing. And the whole thing out there, we were doing the investigation of the Beast of Bray Road. You had been out there and you saw us on Bray Road. And basically, the thing is, you're not allowed to be on Bray Road for any length of time. We were there for like 3 hours shooting video, but you turned around, came back, and we became instant friends right there.
I had walked on Bray Road before, but what I did was I parked. There's a kind of it's sort of a strip mall, I guess, that's almost with a lot of empty buildings, not too far away. There's two like major intersections that come there. So I would park there and walk a half a mile to the beginning of Bray Road, and then walk down Bray Road for as long as my legs would carry me, knowing that I had to walk back. So I never made the whole, I think they're about 4 miles, I think.
Yeah.
But that was pretty cool to cruise Bray Road, and I'm really glad you guys were able to get your investigation done without being in shackles.
Oh, I know, right? And even the officer did come by and said, "Oh, what are you guys doing?" And real nice guy. I said, "We're doing a documentary on the Beast of Bray Road." And he just chuckled and said, "Have a great day." That was it. A lot of my viewers want to know about the Mothman. They've heard of it, but they don't know the backstory to it. So that's what we're going to talk about. But before we do this, what brought you into this field, Steve? What brought you into this this paranormal genre?
Well, when I was in junior high school in Michigan, in March of 1966, we had that wave of UFO sightings, famous UFO sightings. And that was when Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was an astronomer at Northwestern University, he was attached to Project Blue Book, which was the Air Force's supposed investigation arm for UFOs, more of a publicity thing. They weren't really that interested in investigating UFOs, perhaps behind the scenes, but not really with Blue Book. So he actually, when this thing erupted in Michigan, a lot of very credible people, police officers and so forth, were seeing things. Frank Manor on his farm in Dexter, a lot of people saw a landing there. And so Hynek asked him, he said, "Do you want me to go down and check this out?" And I said, no, don't worry about it. Nobody has said anything. And then Senator Gerald Ford, who eventually became one of our presidents, he was angry because a lot of very credible people were reporting these things, and the government, the Air Force, didn't seem to care. So they dispatched Hynek the next day, and he became infamous because while he was originally a skeptic, by this time he had begun to believe that there was really something to this, and he had already become a friend and colleague of Dr. Jacques Vallée, who didn't really rise to prominence until a little bit later. But he and actually, as a kid, I mean, this was so cool, man. You've got aliens landing in your backyard in Michigan.
Of course.
I couldn't drive, so I couldn't play UFO investigator. But I actually saw the press conference live where Dr. Hynek is, they showed him a photograph of the George Adamski's flying saucer, right? He said it looked like a chicken brooder. Yeah. And he mentioned there were sightings in Dexter, Ann Arbor, Hillsdale. And some of the ones in Hillsdale, it was at the time, Hillsdale was an all-girls college.
Okay.
I guess I should say all women's college, or I'll be ostracized. And he suggested that some of the sightings might be swamp gas.
which forms a consistent picture.
Doctor, could you face this way more?
Yeah, all right.
He thought that these sightings were more credible, and the marsh gas, the way that vegetation decays, probably isn't going to happen in March anyway. But that's all the press needed. It's swamp gas.
That was
and it's interesting because well, of course, he separated himself from Blue Book later, and he started the Center for UFO Studies in Evanston, Illinois. Wrote a great book called The UFO Experience, where he first talked about the close encounter categories. But I actually got to see him speak 10 years later in Ann Arbor at the MUFON Symposium, the Mutual UFO Network.
phenomenal.
And the name of his talk was Swamp Gas Plus 10 and Counting. And it was a serious talk, but there was a lot of humor because he would show some of the cartoons that came out at the time. The human is walking along the sidewalk. The aliens have landed in their flying saucer, and they've got the little green man. They've got these huge blasters, and they say to him, "Take us to the one that called us swamp gas." So it was, I actually have that recorded. I recorded it on a cassette and transferred it to CD much later. So a lot of interesting people were there. Jerome Clark was in for Jacques Vallée, Ray Stanford, a classic. I mean, I was in seventh heaven. It was actually a place that I could drive to, a man of very little means. And then the following November was the first major sighting of this winged humanoid that chased two couples down Route 62 out of what they have always nicknamed the TNT area, because that's where they made explosives for World War II. And you can look at the old black and white photographs of this huge complex. By the 60s, most of it had been torn down.
Wow.
The old North Power Plant was still up. And that's where the two married couples, the Scarberries and the Mallets, they were driving along that dirt road. And Linda said, "What's that man doing standing in the road?" And now this comes from Jeff Walmsley, who founded the Mothman Festival and the Mothman Museum. He took Linda out one day several years ago and said, "Linda, take me step by step about everything that happened." And she said they saw what they thought was a man standing in the road. That man spread his wings by 10 feet. And then they noticed it had red eyes and was kind of shuffling off toward the old North Power Plant, and eventually chased them into town. And just recently, now the Mallets, Steve and Mary Mallet, they gave interviews initially, but we haven't heard from them for years. Roger Scarberry, who was driving the car at the time, he also shut up for decades. But a couple of months ago, he approached Jeff Walmsley and said, "I'm tired of this being misrepresented of what happened." And he said, Roger Scarberry. And I got to sit in on part of the interview, just part of it. The little bit I know is under double secret probation because Jeff is going to write about it.
Okay, cool.
And but he did tell me this. He said that when he first met Roger the day before and they set up the interview, he said, "Roger, just tell me, did it really happen?" And Roger said, "It scared the hell out of us."
Wow.
And there's also another individual that has come forward that Jeff is gonna be interviewing very, very soon, or maybe already has, who's mentioned in the Mothman Prophecies, another individual who I won't name because I don't know if I'm supposed to, that has been quiet for decades. So within a couple of months, we have two people that have come forward that have just been quiet, So how cool is that? Anyway, that's what started me. I mean, and when it hit that sighting, that when it chased the two couples into town, it hit the wire services all over the world. You can go into the Mothman Museum and see the Stars and Stripes newspaper where it carried it. And this is even before Mothman had a proper nickname. So if somebody told me that, you know what, in several decades, you're going to be living on the same road that the Scarberries and the Mallets were chased by the Mothman and work part-time at the Mothman Museum, I would have said, "You're crazy."
Talk about coming full circle, right?
Yes.
Incredible. So here's the thing, though. So we both, were down. I was just my first time at the Mothman Festival last weekend, and it was phenomenal. I mean, what, 20,000 some odd people were there last weekend.
Yes, that's the
And
estimate.
Steve, I didn't even make it into the museum. I couldn't even get in.
You can't get in.
There was like a mile long line of people getting in there. But from what I saw from the outside, it looked really, really cool. And just the newspaper coverage and just how this thing over the years has really like captured the minds and hearts of people all over. I mean, there's been movies about it. And then a good friend of mine, Martin Powell, wrote a book. Now we all know Kolchak, right? Kolchak, the night.
Yes, oh yeah.
Well, this is Mothman Requiem. And this is a beautiful story. But again, it's like it's captured the minds of writers and people that have just, experienced these people that have experienced it. That's
And
all.
Linda Sigmund, very credible lady. She was 16 years old when this happened. She didn't come forward till about 2016. And she was about 16, about 12 miles north of Point Pleasant. It was April of 67, just a few months before the bridge collapse, which seemed to be the sort of the end of all this.
Well, that's what I
Uh,
want to ask you is now
yes,
people think that the Mothman caused the bridge collapse, but that's not true.
I don't, there's people that believe it caused it. There are some people that believe somehow it was a harbinger, and there's others like me that think that it's just one of those things that happened at the same time. If you know something's going to happen, don't just chase cars and scare the hell out of people. Let them know, whatever it is, spell out the disaster, and seriously, so that gets into the prophecy side of the Mothman prophecies. But yeah, it was. People have different views on that.
Right. And I mean, you're a devotee of John Keel, of course, as we
Yep.
all are. And John Keel, I mean, he was on site when those things were happening. And he spoke to a lot of the witnesses. Now, did you ever get a chance to talk to John?
I did not. I Some good friends of mine, John and Tim Frick, who portrayed the Men in Black by day at the festival and
Uh-huh.
Fly the Mothman by night. It was an incredible, ingenious low-tech delivery system with a hand crank. They light up his eyes. They have a sound effect, and of course, I go in there ahead of time and set up other like little sort of Halloween critters, cobble together things. But they, man, in 2003 when they unveiled the Mothman statue, they said to John Keel, "We'd like to take you to lunch," and he said, "Okay." And he said, "Where would you like to go?" He said, "Tiny's." Well, Tiny's is what is now Village Pizza. Tiny's
Ah,
restaurant was actually the first place where the Scarberries and the Mallets stopped after this thing chased them into town because Linda worked there. It was just about closing time. She talked to her boss, and he suggested they go to the police station. And that's when they went there and they wrote out their statements, which you can see, they were separated. They wrote out their statements, and you can see them in the Mothman Museum.
oh man.
So, yeah, and anyway, they sat down with John Keel for a couple hours, and Keel is there are some on YouTube. Sometimes you can find some of the fascinating lectures he gave. I
Mhm.
mean, this guy left Perry, New York, with a couple of bucks and all his belongings in a cardboard box. Went to Greenwich Village. He went through the starvation period, and then he was writing for tabloids, comic books, and all kinds of things. Actually, was getting a writing career going, and then he got drafted into the Korean conflict. They
Oh,
they say they sent him off to Frankfurt though, and because he actually had a little bit of television experience, because there was a fledgling television station in the basement of Macy's or something there, and he was a journalist. And so he's there, and he's on this big troop ship, and he meets another guy named George, and they finally get there. They're told, "Oh, it's horrible conditions over there. We're going to be living in a tent city." And so he gets there, and this limo pulls up with a German in full uniform looking for Herr Keel. Keel and George get in, and they're driving away, and Keel says, "Are we going to be living in a tent city?" And he said, "No, Herr Keel, you're going to be living in a castle." They had commandeered a castle, and it was the Armed Forces Network. Keel was on the entertainment side, and
wow.
George was on the news side. And just very quickly, Halloween was coming up, and he wanted to do something. I mean, Keel is such a fascinating guy. He he wanted to do something inspired by Orson Welles
Yeah.
and the War of the Worlds broadcast. So he wrote this script that this Frankenstein monster would come back every 100 years. There really is a Frankenstein castle. There was a Baron von Frankenstein that supposedly in the 1300s slew some kind of monster. But so he writes this script, and this creature is attacking the people in the radio station and ripping them apart. And people in the valley locked their doors and windows, and they even sent some MPs up there to make sure that people weren't really dying. Anyway, and then he and this is a lot of this is chronicled in a book called Jadoo, which is the name for magic. And he went after he left the Korea, I mean not Korea, the armed services. He went through Egypt and Tibet, and even may have had a close brush with the Yeti, but just a and he saw actually he saw his first UFO as a kid, about 7 years old, when they were driving in the car. But he saw one near one of the pyramids when he was in Egypt.
Wow.
So he was kind of prepared ahead of time for what was to come.
Wasn't he on site and seeing all the UFOs that were going on at that time?
Yeah, I mean, it was incredible. They found a place. Now, actually, in the TNT area, you had droves of people driving in there. And initially they were carrying in their shotguns and bow and arrows because those boys thought they were going to bag themselves a Mothman. And finally, I think they restricted people from bringing weapons in there.
Wow.
But there was a place, if you go south, actually down past the Chief Cornstalk hunting grounds to Galapagos Ferry. And imagine, I mean, it's pretty, if you go into the hollers, you'll see a lot of the homes and so forth. Imagine how desolate it was back 50 years ago.
Oh, yeah.
And they found a particular hill. We think we have found that hill, by the way, but where there was a farmhouse that the lights would go out at 9 o'clock because they're farmers. You got up early in the morning. They would park nearby, sometimes with Mary Heyer, his friend and colleague, the newspaper reporter that wrote the column Where the Waters Mingle, and she reported on the Mothman, Men in Black, and UFOs. They would sit out there with different people, and they would see these strange lights pass over all the time. Wow. I mean, and also another hot spot was Camp Conley Road, which is kind of like the southern border of the TNT area, which now is called the McClintock Wildlife Area. But yeah, it was just it was a three-ring circus of the paranormal.
So you've been immersed in this, obviously, for most of your life, and to be, so knowledgeable in not only Mothman, but a lot of the other paranormal stuff that's been going on. I always say there's always a bit of truth to the folklore, because we're investigating a haunted vampire museum up here in Bucks County, but he has over 700 vampire killing sets from the 17 and 1800s. So I'm saying to myself, why so many? What was going on back then? So it really, you have to pause for a moment and raise an eyebrow and say, wow, there's something really going on here behind the scenes. And what about with the Mothman and with all of these paranormal experiences? I don't know what your opinion is on this, but I think that people are picked. From our research, I'm wondering if people are picked to experience these things, or maybe it's in family lines, maybe it's in generational. What do you think about that kind of stuff? Coming June 7th, 2025, it's the third annual Cryptids and Paranormal Conference held at Our House, with guest speakers Ronnie LeBlanc, Expedition Bigfoot, paranormal researcher Lyle Blackburn, ghost hunter Ron Iacovetti, Dr. Jeff Meldrum, and from Phantoms and Monsters, Lon Strickler. That's June 7th, 2025, Our House, located at 420 Adelphia Road, Farmingdale, New Jersey. Tickets are $45, available at Eventbrite. We will see you there.
Keel thought that certain people are more tuned in. Some people seem to have natural psychic ability. They're more apt to experience these things. And he had all these great catchphrases. And one was, ask the contactee, and he meant the experiencer, what they had for breakfast, what he or she had for breakfast, not literally post toasties, but he found that if people saw a cryptid or had a UFO experience, if he started asking other questions, it turned out they would have had all kinds of paranormal experiences. A few years ago, a young lady named Missy contacted me from Londonderry, New Hampshire, and she'd seen me on Facebook. And she told me her story about she and her husband were standing on their front porch, and they're near an airport, so they're very familiar with the lights on normal craft. We see these strange lights coming by, and then all of a sudden, they're not standing next to each other on the porch anymore. She's got her hands up in the air like this, and they see this large black giant triangle passing over the trees, just barely touching the treetops.
Wow.
And then, like so many people that have these experiences, at that point, it didn't register. They turned around and went back to bed. Later on, she realizes, we're missing about a half hour. And what the heck was that thing we saw?
Wow.
So, and now she was trying to make a breakthrough with hypnosis to try and find out what that missing time was about. She had not at that point. But because of people like John Keel and also Rosemary Ellen Guiley, who is no longer with us, she just, when she was investigating shadow people, she found that a large percentage of people experiencing shadow people, whether in the house or whatever situation, were also alien abductees. So I asked her a series of John Keel style questions. And to make a long story short, they were experiencing classic haunting phenomena in their house. Her youngest boy was seeing orange orbs dancing outside his window at night. The older brother saw an orb come up to him in the house, circle him, go off into the other room. And she saw a shadow person move across the wall one time. And then I asked her, I said, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I know that people that had these experiences also had sometimes seen some kind of a cryptid. I said, have you ever seen an animal that you couldn't identify or something like a Bigfoot? And she said, well, no. And then she said, oh, wait a minute. My mother-in-law and sister-in-law, they saw something strange near the property. And this thing was seen twice. It looked like a black panther standing on two legs.
Get the hell.
Now, if I was frozen in the 1960s, and man, I love the stories of the landings and what I thought were strictly ET,
Right.
I never would have known to ask any of these questions. Thank God for people like John Keel and Rosemary Ellen Guiley that paved the way. So people, it's not unusual for people to have had many different types of experiences all their life sometimes.
And this is the people up in New Hampshire.
Yes, this is a couple in New Hampshire.
And they saw this panther.
Yeah, it was her mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Eventually, she made a breakthrough, and it was kind of like a classic UFO abduction. She was like lying on a table or whatever. There were a couple of pale-looking grays looking at her, and just out of her peripheral vision, there was a female voice. And a lot of times in these things, whether it goes back to folklore, the elves or whatever, or modern day UFO experiences, there's kind of a tall presence. And it was like a very calming voice. And it was saying things like, now, Missy, you've been through this before. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. And then she said toward her feet, she saw some horrible looking creature that she couldn't even identify.
Wow.
So, and she had contacted a local UFO group earlier on, and while they were at their house, a black car came down their road. It was on a cul-de-sac with tinted windows, and made the slow circle around the cul-de-sac and drove away.
Wow.
I'll tell you what, man. So, but again, if I was just a frozen in the 60s, I would have said, I hope you make that breakthrough with that hypnosis, and would have had no idea what was beneath the surface.
When you're talking to witnesses, and I'm sure you do as well, where you could hear, you're pretty good at discerning the truth from the BS, and when you hear these people talking and they're having a hard time, telling you this story, it's something that profoundly happened to them. It's amazing. You really can't deny that.
When you talk to people like Stan Gordon, who have been at this forever. I mean, I have investigated and talked to some people, but I'm not fit to carry his pencil box. He's done so much stuff. But people like him, he told me, and also Rosemary Ellen Guiley told me, that sometimes people will withhold certain details because they're so weird. I mean, it's like the initial experience is weird enough, and they don't always come forward with the full details because they're so unbelievable. Yeah. Here's another thing that comes up. Somebody, if they see a Bigfoot in conjunction with some kind of strange light in the sky, the Bigfoot guy will say, I don't want to hear about your UFO. I want to hear about the Bigfoot. The UFO guy will say, I don't care about the Bigfoot. What I want to know about this crap from Alpha Centauri.
Yeah.
So there's this incredible overlap. And when it's important, like you were talking about listening to the experiencer. And it's just very important to listen to. Of course, we're trying to vet them as best we can, but I say that if you look at incidents all over the globe in different time periods
Hmm.
and between different what we think of as different types of phenomena like cryptids, psychic phenomena, UFOs, that patterns, connections, and parallels will emerge, and we do not have to force them or imagine them. And it's really important to document that because I think that kind with these high strangeness areas where all this stuff is happening in the same place, I think perhaps we might get a little closer to what's going on.
So what's up next for you, Steve?
Tomorrow, I'm heading out to Iowa. I'll be staying with some friends in Davenport.
Okay.
A couple that lives there. The lady is also a fan of Van Meter. She'll be driving in for Saturday,
Okay.
and so I will be. Chad Lewis, who's one of the guys that runs it.
Yep.
He always it sets up something like an Airbnb for the MC and the speakers. Now, I was supposed to be the MC there, but somebody dropped out. So Chad said, "Do you want to speak?" I said, "Sure."
Oh, that's cool.
So
That's
given
awesome.
one of my basic, it's sort of like a stump speech with, things taken out and things put in. And part of it includes your mentioning your investigation
I
with
appreciate
Dominic Satel and Lee Hampel and the all the bizarre things on the farm. And I warn people ahead of time. I tell them I have this big speculation sign. I said, now look, when we get toward the end of this, I'm going to indulge in some reckless, irresponsible speculation. But don't worry, the speculation train is moving very slowly. And once I get through that, I show the image of the bridge being out over a river of a railroad track. So I'll be doing that, and then the following weekend, I'll be going to Sandusky to the Halloween Fest or something. I forget the actual name of it to talk about the Mothman,
Wow, that's
and then
awesome.
I'll be in traction.
Steve, always a pleasure, man. You're the best, man. I really appreciate it. It was great to see you. I just wish we could have spent more time together, but next time for sure. But thank you, buddy, for coming. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching today. Again, we've got a lot of really, really great guests like we did today. And thank you so much for watching. Have a great night.